Welcome to the weekly horoscope from Sunday, October 19th to Sunday, October 26th, 2025. And we just had the biggest transit of October happen yesterday before I recorded this when Jupiter moved into Cancer. And we're going to talk about that and the two major transits happening this week, a new moon and Mercury moving into Scorpio, and how you can best work with all these energies, and a big overview of what's going on in astrology right now in the Vedic astrology perspective. And this is true to astronomy. So everything I'm saying, you can look with your own eyes or a telescope or a stargazing app and see these are the placements, unlike in Western astrology or tropical astrology. And if you want to work with all these energies going on right now, the best way is the free workshop that I'm hosting on the 20th. It is called Relationship Astrology. And we're going to be working with the Jupiter and Cancer energy and the Sun and Libra energy and how these affect our relationships over the next several months and really throughout our whole lives, and how to look at synastry and compatibility between you and any other person. It's super fun, super cool. That's at quietmindastrology.com/relationships. You can join live and be interactive, or if you catch this later, you can catch the replay at that same link. So this week started off really strong because Saturday we had Jupiter moving into Cancer, and I made a free guide for that and 2 episodes about it. So check those out if you want to go deeper into this, because it's going to have impacts all the way until mid 2027. And basically, it's good, it's positive. It's like you're closing out a chapter of Jupiter and Gemini, which could have been a bit overwhelming and confusing. We're going to have to go back over those lessons, but Jupiter is going to be in Punar Vasu through that whole time, which is a very positive energy. It's the return of the light, a renewal, a hopeful energy. And it's especially hopeful this week, and especially good for beginning any kind of new projects or new ventures and finishing out things from the past. Emotionally, you might feel like a new phase of life is beginning now. That's really going to be evolving over the next 2 years until mid 2027. So it's a long story, and we'll be going through that story together on the podcast. And you can get an overview of that in the free guide and the previous episodes. But this week, now that we're in that window, we're inside of Jupiter and Cancer this week. We have the new moon coming up on Tuesday, October 21st. It's a new moon in Chitra Nakshatra in the sign of Libra. And it's actually at 5:24 a.m. Pacific time in Los Angeles, which is 7:24 a.m. in Central Time, Chicago, 8:24 a.m. in Eastern Time, New York. So early morning, new moon beginnings in Libra. So this is opportunities for a new chapter of your relationships. We got through the eclipse portal of last month and had to make some important decisions in our life and choose the timeline we're going to be on until the next eclipse portal. And now in this new moon, we can sort of begin new intentions, new perspectives, new ideas of what we want to be creating. And if you're looking at the chart, we can always see a new moon when sun and moon are at the same degree. That is now the new moon. And when they're at opposite signs at the same degree, that's the full moon. Chitra is the architect energy. So it's about building something and creating something new in your relationship path. I've shared about this before. One of the most powerful things I've done around relationships is a relationship timeline. And that's something I'll be offering soon in the relationship alignment program I'll be offering. And if you want some support with that, I highly recommend, because I had support and it was still very hard. And it might sound simple. Yeah, I know. Of course, I can just think about this relationship and that relationship. And I've talked to people who say this, and then when they actually do it, it's so confronting. It moves so much stuff, and it's deep work, and it really helps to have some sort of container when you do it. But if you feel called to that, if you feel like there's maybe some new lessons to mine from your past relationships, and if you're in current relationship or single or whatever your status is now, and you're finding something unwanted or that's challenging or blocked, you could just, try to think positively and work around it and not deal with it. But likely it will repeat until we make it more conscious and have more awareness around it. And these are what we call samskaras in the Vedic tradition. They're sort of imprints or patterns. I think of it sometimes like if you're a baby and you're born, you're like a blank piece of paper. And I have a little uh, thing here I could kind of use as an example. This is a cloth I use to clean my computer, and it has some creases on it that are very difficult to get those creases out because of how I fold it all the time. And it's kind of like that when we're a baby, like we're a blank piece of paper, and then from the womb, we start to get little creases in the paper. And then as we, especially our first formative years, lots of creases in the paper. And they're not good or bad. They're just the imprints and the conditioning and the patterns we saw growing up and how we responded to that. And those creases in the paper are there pretty much for life. And we can try to smooth them out. And, but when we kind of stop using that effort, it goes back to the creases. And I need to wash this thing. But the creases are there. And now it's like if you don't have awareness of the creases and the patterns that you have, the samskaras, and you're just trying to go about your life, you're likely just going to be repeating patterns. And as Carl Jung said, until we make what is unconscious conscious, it will dictate our lives and we'll call it our destiny or our fate. And I think in astrology, we have a sense of some of the themes and patterns going on, but I don't think astrology is absolute fate. 100%, you have no free will at all. I don't personally believe that, but I know some people do, and I think that's a valid perspective too. I think that there's potential energies, and we have at least the feeling of free will and choice and how to respond to them. So you might notice some patterns of anxious attachment style or avoidant attachment style or a narcissistic personality disorder in your partner or your caregiver. And you become aware of these patterns and not to label them, not to say like this is all I am or all they are, but to now have awareness of it. And now we can work with it. And we can see that sometimes in the chart, certain patterns can indicate certain things like Venus and Virgo right now can indicate a very heady approach to relationships in general. And if that's not the case, then there's probably other factors in the chart, like aspects or rulers, that are modifying how that expresses. But generally, Venus and Virgo can be a little bit more heady and less in the heart, more analytical and less embodied, and less sensual and sexual, and more wanting intellectual stimulation in a relationship. Somebody who might be drawn towards like an asexual relationship or more what do you call it, like sopo-sexual? It's like you're intellectually stimulated by the partner. That could be more Venus and Virgo in general, not for everybody. If you have it and you don't resonate, there's probably other factors in your chart that point to that. Maybe where Mercury's placed or what's aspecting Venus or things like this. So these are, general interpretations. And then I think we have some free will and choice in how to work with those things because everything can have a potential positive, negative, or neutral expression. And in this workshop, we're going to look at this. We're going to look at Venus and its possible placements. And earlier this year, we had Venus in Pisces and exaltation, and it went retrograde. So we had a lot of time with Venus in Pisces at the beginning of this year, which could be very blissful and beautiful and orgasmic and all these beautiful, amazing things and all the best things we want in relationships, sensuality, sexuality could have been there for you. It also could be idealism, fantasy, escapism, loss of relationship because the Pisces energy lets things go, a detachment, a very spiritual connection, a love of your spiritual path. That may have been how it expressed for you. Again, I think we always have some level of free will, how to work with these potentials. And we'll talk about that at the workshop more in depth. But I hope that as we're working with this week's energies and now the new moon here in Chitra, we can see how we can be the architect of our lives. We can map it out. We can have the blueprint. We can make a plan and be adaptable, not be too rigid, but be the architects of our lives. And with all this Vishaka energy here as well this week, it's good for setting goals, focusing on a path you want to be on, and moving in that direction. And the new moon is, in general, always a good time for new intentions, especially now in Libra about relationships and how you want to adjust the balance of your life. And that doesn't mean everything has to be perfectly even. Like in a relationship, usually there's asymmetry. Like one person does this, the other person does that. Like one person does the dishes, the other person cooks, or maybe one person is the house keeper and a householder with the family. The other person is going out and earning the income. There's relationships are meant to be balanced, but they don't have to be exactly symmetrical. So when we talk about the scales of Libra, it's not about what is perfectly even and balanced. And when we talk about relationships, usually relationships have asymmetries and that works. And it's finding the balance that works for the couple. And it's very personal. So you may be finding a new balance in your relationships. If you're single, a new balance of your personal life and your social life, and yourself and your friendships and communities and circles that you're involved in. And the balance of like what is realistic in your goal setting with all the Vishaka energy. Like, are you working too much or not enough to achieve the outcome that you want? Are the relationships in your life supporting the goals and intentions that you have? As there's that famous saying, you're the average of the five people you spend the most time with. So if the five people you spend the most time with don't have outcomes that you want, maybe you want to adjust your social life a little bit. The Libra energy can be very compromising. And with Sun in Libra for all of us, it's like you might find yourself over giving or over compromising or needing to look for where yourself is, finding yourself in a new way. For me personally, I'm a little bit in this journey right now this month. The sun is the self, and for me, it's in Aries. So this is the opposite energy for me. It's now debilitated in Libra. So there's a little bit of soul searching that I think is always valuable to do. But for me personally, with the sun in Libra, I'm feeling like more called to more meditation, more inner work, and more finding the sense of self, which is the sun, the soul. So for all of us, there may be some of that. And there's a nice energy of this of creating peace. So what is finding what's fair and balanced can create harmony and peace. So in your life, in your environments, your work relationships, your connections, there's an opportunity to find more peace and balance. So that's the new moon. It's sort of setting the stage for the next 2 weeks until the full moon. And with this new moon, again, it's a good day for setting intentions. And if you want practices for working with this, I'll be sharing those in the Quiet Mind Yoga side of things that I offer, at quietmind.yoga, for actual embodiment and practices to work with this energy. And if you want a workshop to work with this and talk about it, be interactive and look at your relationship patterns and your samskaras and what you're working with in your chart and compatibility with others, that's what we'll be doing at the Relationship Astrology Workshop. It's free, it's live. I love offering these. It's a big service, a big blessing for me to get to share this. So quietmindastrology.com/relationships. I'd love to see you there. And then the second and final big transit happening this week is on the 24th of Friday. And this is Mercury moving out of Libra into Scorpio on Friday the 24th and early in the morning in the Pacific time. So Mercury, the planet of communication, friendship, connection, moves into Scorpio, which is really all about the astrology kind of stuff. Like Scorpio is great for if you want to be learning astrology, learning yoga, learning spiritual work, doing deep inner work. I mentioned some of the soul searching kind of work. This is a great week for doing that kind of work. Soul searching, self-awareness, journaling, talking with friends about deep things, talking with relationships, spouse, children, family, friends, coworkers about deeper topics and getting down into the deeper issues of things. And if you have a goal that you want to work towards, you may find yourself from Friday being a bit more ambitious and driven with that. With Mars and Vishaka and Libra, and now Mercury and Scorpio, it's like you can get to the heart of the matter. So it's quite a strong energy, and Mercury is ruled by Mars, and Mars is ruled by Venus right now, and the Venus ruled by Mercury. So it's kind of like a sign exchange going on, which amplifies and brings more positive expression to all of these: your communication, the actions that you take, and the support relationships around you. This is a more yang kind of energy going on from the end of this week until next week. So you may find yourself a bit more energized. And if you're not, there's probably some resistance in your life that's blocking the flow of energy that needs some attention. And resistance can show up as tension in the body, strong emotions like fear, anxiety, anger. So having some awareness around those things this week. If the energy is flowing strong, then it's good to have a goal you're working towards, an intention you set on Tuesday, around Tuesday by the new moon, moving towards your vision and goal. And if there's resistance in the way, it's an opportunity to redirect, to slow down, to pause, reconnect to your body and yourself. And that's what we do in the embodiment practices of quiet mind yoga. So if you want some practices to regulate your nervous system and get embodied and navigate these shifts going on this week, that's over at Quiet Mind Yoga. And if you want to work with this in relationships, check out the free workshop. But those are the two big transits going on this week. We have the long term influence of Rahu and Aquarius, K2 and Leo, moving towards a lot of innovation and progress in society overall. We've got Saturn and Pisces helping us redefine our boundaries and our spiritual path and grow in unexpected ways. These are long term influences over the next year plus. And now we have Jupiter in Cancer, and that's a really positive energy, which I talked a lot about, and for each sign in the last two episodes. So check those out if you haven't yet and get the free guide for that. But overall, it's a really good energy, but there's some kind of stops and starts to that Jupiter and Cancer thing going on over the next 2 years. So if you found this episode helpful, let me know in the comments. Leave a comment what you liked, what resonated most with you or you find helpful. And then I hope to see you at the free workshop, quietmindastrology.com/relationships. Have a great rest of your day and your week.